morning to hear the congressman. I did not know that I was going to be introducing him, but I will tell you that it is truly an honor to do so. This will be the second time that I personally had the pleasure and the honor to meet the congressman and to have conversation with him. And I can tell you that we are in for a very informative and very inspirational address this morning. And as I mentioned, I really do look forward to hearing from Congressman Carson. The congressman began his political career on the Indianapolis City County Council, and he currently does represent Indiana's 7th Congressional District, which is out of central Indiana. As a member of Indianapolis's City County Council, his focus was on 3 areas that I would submit are important to all of us who serve at the local level. His focus was on education, strong schools, and a principal focus in the area of secondary education. He also was very focused and very supportive of local businesses and prosperous neighborhoods. And I would submit that any local governmental entity, any community, any city, any township that has strong secondary education, has a strong local business community, and has prosperous neighborhoods is the type of community that we all would want to be part of. I know that he is a believer and supporter of growth that happens at the grassroots level, that is best driven from the grassroots upward, and that it isn't a trickle-down type of approach or philosophy. The congressman is one of 2 Muslims that currently serves in the Congress of the United States, and I'm pleased to be able to count both of them as personal friends. As I mentioned, I have had the opportunity to share conversation with a congressman in the past, and I do consider he and his other colleague personal friends. The Mayor Bonero had a couple notes here for me because he originally was scheduled to introduce the congressman, and this one note says, he is what we oldsters call a whippersnapper because he's still under the age of 40. Wow. And I turned to Mayor Bonero and said, Verge, that's what I call you because you're under the age of 50. I won't delay anymore because you're here to hear the congressman speak. And I would like to call Congressman André Carson forward at this point in time and have him provide us with his inspirational message, a message that I personally have been looking forward to. So if I may call forward our honored guest and my friend, Congressman André Carson.
As a tradition to honor our guest, I'll request Dr. Paulette Cranberry Russell to present a plaque on behalf of Michigan State University.
Well, I know we generally do these acknowledgments after the speech, but we want to keep you motivated and appreciative of the fact that you are here on our campus, Michigan State University. This is also my second opportunity to hear you speak in this last year, and I must say that I was particularly inspired, so I am truly grateful on a personal level to see you here again. But this is presented to Congressman André Carson in grateful recognition for his continued commitment to accessible health care and participation in the 3rd Annual Muslim Mental Health Conference, March 26, 2011, Michigan State University. And yes, we have the block S. All right. Again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Russell. Thank you very much. Wow, this is great. Thank you. I'll have to hang this up in my office. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor Bonero, who I know had to leave. Also to Mayor Loomis, my personal friend. I always get a great deal of insight every time I speak to Mayor Loomis because he's so seasoned and his words are so measured and very practical, and I appreciate that about you, Mayor. To Dr. Abbasi, thank you for the invitation, and thank you for your friendship, and thank you for your patience as we try to work out a perfect time in terms of scheduling, so thank you. I appreciated Dr. Ahmed when I came here. She's still here. Dr. Ahmed, thank you. Great job. Great job. Dr. Hamid, is he still here? Great words, brother. Thank you. Very critical for me because coming from a family of great athletes and great politicians and great thinkers, and also those who suffer from mental illness and mental health issues, also coming from a family of Muslims, I think it's critical that you pointed out some of the issues that do take place, and other things get blamed for those issues, jinns and so on and so forth, when people seriously need help. And I think that it's a taboo topic in our community that we really need to deal with head on. So thank you for that. It's great to be back in Michigan with so many dear friends. Michigan reminds me so much of the great Hoosier state, Indiana, not only because of your farmland, but because of the people, the great people. So I'm happy to be here. Assalamu alaikum. Praise the Lord. Shalom. And what's up? Yeah, just happy to be here with some fellow Americans. You know, for several months now, we've been dealing with a different kind of rhetoric and a different kind of fear-mongering we haven't seen at this level since post 9/11. Some would argue that even in the aftermath of that tragedy, there was not the outright hate that we're starting to see today. This was on full display recently during the Peter King hearings, in which American Muslims were effectively put on trial. By targeting American Muslims, I believe personally that these hearings ran contrary to centuries of upholding religious freedoms in the great USA, and further contradicts the proud American history many Muslim families can trace back since the inception of our great nation. It harkens back to the days of Senator Joseph McCarthy, when similar witch hunts pitted neighbor against neighbor, while failing to improve our national security and effectively distracting Americans from more pressing issues confronting our great nation. I fear that this hearing is one of many. I understand that Representative King plans to conduct additional hearings about Muslim radicalization in prisons. To me, to peaceful, patriotic American Muslims, this serves as a reminder that no matter how many of us, the millions of us who live here, embrace our country, and no matter how deep our civic commitment is, the acts of a misguided handful of perverted individuals who claim Islam have created effectively a guilt by association mentality at the highest level of government. Now, these are extremists who we know are misguided and in many cases have mental health issues. But violence caused by ideological extremism is a threat to religions across this country. Now, we should never downplay, as I said recently in an interview, any form of religious extremism. As a former law enforcement officer and one who worked at the Department of Homeland Security, I worked with informants and cooperating witnesses from all backgrounds on a wide variety of cases, but one reality held true. Those who trusted law enforcement, our judicial system, and the government provided more useful information in a timely manner than those who were singled out and targeted. Plain and simple, security is based on trust. When leadership does not have the trust of a community, regardless of religion or race, it is extremely difficult to maintain security. The fact is that King's hearings exacerbated existing tensions in our community. Cooperation of the Muslim community has helped 7 out of 10 the last attempted Al-Qaeda plots against this country. Despite what Representative King says, Muslims are cooperating. Since 9/11, we've seen an increase and an interest in Islam. Now, the FBI has worked, but their hands aren't clean as it relates to Muslims. We know that. We can go back to the COINTEL program, but I think progress has been made. I'm deeply concerned about informants and undercover officers being placed in mosques without probable cause, without reasonable suspicion, who are set up to stir trouble and dissatisfaction and discontent in our religious houses. But we still have an obligation and a commitment to push back misconceptions. And I believe we have an obligation to work with law enforcement. You know, I can say that being a one of two Muslims in Congress, that it has in fact presented a great opportunity for me to converse with my colleagues on both sides of the political aisle. And I have found that in some cases, even as a proud Democrat, some of my Republican colleagues have displayed a certain amount of sophistication as it relates to Muslims. Why? Because many of them have Muslim constituents. And they know that America will not win the war against terrorism without help from Muslims. Just this week, Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois has announced that he would be conducting hearings as well on threats to American Muslim civil rights. He's taking a different spin. I think his hearings will have a more positive effect because he has several Muslim staffers. You know, this welcomes an opportunity for us to become politically engaged. It opens an opportunity for our psychologists and therapists to come and dispel any misperceptions. You know, in this country, we're a country of religious freedoms, but we're also a country of, I don't want to say cults, sociologists choose to use the term new religious movements. And many of these new religious movements have charismatic figures, and some of them have proven to be, throughout our history, psychotic, sociopathic, very manipulative, and in many cases, in most cases, abusive. There's a term called spiritual abuse. And Islam is no exception. Islam, we certainly don't have exclusivity rights on bad behavior, but I believe that it is important that we open the dialogue and look more directly at mental health issues that affect the Muslim community. You know, my mother, who is very educated, 2 graduate degrees, very articulate, suffers from schizophrenia. And having that kind of experience, and if anyone has ever dealt with a loved one who suffers from mental health issues, knows that it is certainly a taxing effort to love that person while balancing the family dynamic, while trying to get them treatment once they refuse to be treated. It's a task. And as much as I love my mother, when she gets in a state where she doesn't want to take her medicine, not only do moms guilt you anyway, but couple that with mental health concerns, and my mother, being a deeply devout Christian woman, not throwing moms under the bus, but has often used scripture as a way of not only making those son feel guilty, but of justifying her refusal to take her medicine. And when she takes her medicine, she apologizes. But I've seen the same thing in our community, where other Muslims have blamed the jinn, have blamed evil spirits. And I think when they get around certain individuals who may feed on their mental health issues, maybe knowingly or unknowingly, these people often are susceptible to self-radicalization through online, through websites, and the like. It's important that we have forums. It is important that we as a community are not so reactionary. I think it's now a critical time for us to be very proactive in fighting mental health issues head on. I had a multi-faith upbringing, and I grew up in a Baptist family where my grandmother sent me to Catholic school. And I was encouraged to study different religious faiths by the priest at the time. But once I discovered this, though I had Muslim family members, once I discovered Islam, for me, the message of Islam resonated with even the religious background that I had. It was me going to the masjid, seeing multiculturalism at work, seeing white brothers and sisters, African American, South Asians, Middle Easterns, all coming together for one purpose, and that was to serve God. That moved me as a young man. It moves me today. I think America should see what goes on in the average mosque. They should see the racial makeup in the average mosque. And I think right there we have a model, because pundits have told us that Sunday morning is the most segregated time of the week across this country. But if you go to a mosque on a Friday, we can refute that. I think we have a long way to go as it relates to our religious dialogue in this country, but I think we're on to something. And Muslims have to be a part of that dialogue. Political leaders have to be a part of that dialogue. You know, I'm a politician. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not an imam. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a rabbi. But I can say this. When communities of interest work together, we can get things done. On the city council, we couldn't get anything done without the help of the pastors, pairing them up with community centers, working to get grant opportunities to those community centers. You know, a few years ago, Keith Ellison and I met with an interfaith group. And one of the biggest concerns or complaints that I heard was that Muslims didn't really participate as much as they could have and should have unless there was a problem dealing with law enforcement or discrimination or something happening in the Middle East. It's a reactionary move. I meet with lobbyists all the time, interest groups all the time, who call our office before a bill comes up. I don't hear from Muslim brothers and sisters until after a vote has been cast and the bill goes down. So there's a lack of political sophistication on our part, where we have to grow overall. But even more so, I think we're living in a time where the Peter King hearings and the pushback that he felt as a result of those hearings shows a tremendous amount of progress from where we were 5 years ago. We can't stop there. We can't just sit by and let these hearings come up again without mobilizing and giving some pushback. I want to thank you for inviting me here today, because what it means for me, it means so much. I was telling the staff, Kelly, on the way up, that this is so important for us, because I think this is a step in the right direction. 5 years ago, I don't remember anywhere in the country where we had an honest dialogue about mental health issues in the community. I think that there are still some taboo subjects in our community that we have to address. Domestic violence being one of them. Abuse being another. Child abuse being another. Molestation being another. Because in order for Muslims to truly be respected, we can't mythologize our presence. We're all too human. And I think once society sees us as all too human, then we'll forge better bonds with the society, because they see we're just Americans too. So thank you for your time. God bless you. Take care. Thank you.